Interstellar villain General Suitor is determined to take control of the entire universe. 3 planets have already fallen under his hand, and the 4th is next in line. The president of this planet has been kidnapped and is held captive on the flagship of the ambitious tyrant. The prisoner refuses to surrender the planet willingly.
No!
Counting on the help of a superhero serving in his army. And the savior is already here.
Ramsey.
Shep Ramsey boards the spaceship and skillfully deals with the guards, making his way to the captain's bridge. But there, Suitor's henchmen manage to take him at a gunpoint. The general is ready to turn the superhero's brains inside out, when suddenly the president pulls out a card from his sleeve and uses it to cut off the villain's hand, after which Suitor reveals his reptilian nature, growing a new limb. The villain grabs the president and says,
"Negotiations have ended." Bye now.
Shep makes a quick escape and manages to booby-trap the spaceship before leaving in an escape pod. The explosion obliterates all the other occupants of the ship. Shep Ramsey is thanked by his superior for defeating the evil General Suitor, but there are no new assignments for the intergalactic warrior. They hint that he should take a break because he's not quite the old Ramsey. The old Shep wouldn't have let the president to get killed. Furious at this news, Shep Ramsey smashes the power console, which he needs for further space travel.
Shep, what have you done?
Nothing.
Oh, yes, you have. You have blown your power console.
To restore the ship's functionality, he must land on the nearest planet and recharge the console, but no higher than 0.01% to avoid getting traced.
0.01%. It'll take me 6 weeks to recharge. What am I gonna do for 6 weeks?
The nearest planet to Shep happens to be Earth.
I hate Earthlings.
Though Shep despises Earthlings, he will have to make friends with them. Meanwhile, on Earth, people go about their daily lives. Charlie Wilcox enjoys spending time in his workshop, which he set up in a shed on his property. The workshop lets him to blow off some steam, while his family struggles to pay the bills for their home. His wife, Jenny, insists that Charlie finally ask for a raise from his boss. After all, her husband even works on weekends at home on projects that his unscrupulous boss assigns him. Promising that today he will finally ask for an advance, Charlie resolutely heads to work. Before the door to his boss's office, he diligently rehearses his speech.
I deserve to be recognized.
Sounds good to me, Wilcox. Now all you have to do is have the cojones to say it to your boss instead of his secretary.
But upon entering the office, he doesn't even get a word out before his boss starts to fool him with smooth talk.
How are you?
I'm doing fine.
And how's that lovely wife, Julie?
Jenny.
You're right. And 2 great kids, Mark 9, Theresa 12?
Yeah, they're just...
Still allergic to tuna?
Yes, I suppose I am.
The cunning businessman takes all the credit for Charlie's hard work and has no intention of acknowledging his employee.
Adequate.
Adequate.
Yeah.
I spent the entire weekend on them.
Really, I wouldn't say.
I solved all the design problems. I recalculated the specs.
Yes.
I reinforced the foundations.
Yes, I see that.
I even added a French arch. Makes the entrance pop out dynamically. Did I tell you I spent the entire weekend on this?
Did I tell you I spent the entire weekend with an incredible blonde?
What I'm trying to say...
I know what you're trying to say. Come on, Charlie.
He praises Charlie for his excellent work and says he's rewarded him by etching Charlie's name on a new Simeon crystal in his collection, which he's been assembling for years. Then he shows Charlie out as he's waiting for clients from Japan.
Strike out?
I didn't even get up to bat.
Shep's ship lands in an abandoned nightclub. Fortunately, the building still has electricity. Shep looks disdainfully at how people waste energy.
Earthlings.
Then he connects wires to his spaceship. After that, Shep sets out to explore the local streets. A 6 feet 7 inches tall Hulk Hogan in futuristic exoskeleton attire attracts too much unwanted attention from the people around.
Wow. Did you see that guy?
On his way, he notices a dog locked in a car under the scorching sun, and nearby is the dog's owner sitting in the cafe. This angers Shep, and he decides to help the dog by switching their places, and in the process, takes the man's earthly clothes. He finds an advertisement for housing for rent. Meanwhile, Charlie arrives home, but the entrance to his house is blocked by his neighbor's sports car, who are constantly tinkering with their hot rods in the street, scattering their stuff all over the place. Upon Charlie's request to clear the way, they dismiss him and continue with their activities. After parking across the street, Charlie gathers his things from his rundown car. At that moment, some teenagers drive a Ferrari down the street, forcing Charlie to quickly get away from their path. A local drunkard, a retired colonel, and a Vietnam veteran says that Charlie shouldn't have closed his car door to teach those young punks a lesson. But Charlie replies,
They would have ripped that door off, Colonel. Not likely they wouldn't want to bruise their little hot rod.
At home, his wife welcomes him dressed in seductive attire for an intimate evening. However, Charlie is too exhausted and can't think about anything other than his recent failures. He plans to go to his workshop to let off some steam by swinging a sledgehammer. But upon entering the shed, Charlie sees that his wife has transformed it into a cozy guest house. She removed all his tools and prepared the house for renting to help cover the family's expenses. This infuriates Charlie, and he goes off at his wife. However, their argument is interrupted by an unexpected knock on the door. Shep stands at the doorstep with a firm intention to settle in with them.
I'm here to rent the apartment.
Honey, it's for you.
Hi.
Charlie is concerned that he won't be able to protect his wife from such a giant if the need arises.
These yours?
Take your hands off my children. That was cool. Yeah, can we do it again?
During dinner, Shep claims that he came from France. All household members are delighted to meet such a guest, except for Charlie, who looks at him suspiciously. Displeased, Charlie keeps an eye on his new neighbor. He notices Shep unfolding his military space gear. When Shep goes to check on his spacecraft, Charlie sneaks into his room and finds some mysterious cosmic Glock. He tests the weapon by firing it at the wall, piercing it through, and, in the process, destroying the neighbor's car, which blocked the path to his house all the time. Everything would have been fine, but the impulse emitted by the weapon is immediately detected by Shep's enemies, space bounty hunters. Now, Shep's whereabouts are no longer a secret. Although they have very little information, knowing the planet is enough to begin their search. Two hired thugs set off on a mission to capture the hero. The next morning, as always, Charlie practices his upcoming dialogue.
Darth Vader living in my back house, for Christ's sake. Right after breakfast, I'll go out there and tell him. Darth, I'll say, there's been a mistake. You have to leave.
However, upon seeing Shep pumping his delts with Charlie's tools, he loses his confidence and puts off the talking for later.
I'll catch you later, Shep.
Charlie goes to work without informing his family about what he witnessed. Shep hears Jenny screaming and rushes to her rescue. He grabs her as if she were a little girl and shields her. Then it turns out she's just releasing her frustration as recommended by the psychologist on TV. Shep is accustomed to constant warfare and sees threats in everything. He attacks the mailman.
Lady, don't you think you ought to cut his caffeine intake down a little bit, huh?
Bullseye, mister! Wait, Mr. Ramsey! It's the paperboy.
And then, with a precise and powerful throw, he takes down the paperboy.
Bullseye, smartass.
Charlie's son brings his friends to the house to show them the big guy living with them. The kid suggests the man to take for a skateboard ride. Shep falls over the board in a spectacular way and launches it into the stratosphere, which terrifies the youngsters. The always drunk neighbor notices this and strikes up a conversation with the extraterrestrial about his incredible strength.
And who are you?
Commander of the 94th Fighting Beagles, Colonel Dusty McAll, United States Army. You can call me Colonel. Who are you?
Ramsey. Shep Ramsey, Nippon First Class, Talent of the Secret Strike Force 119, under the guidance of Zanuck Vivian, Supreme Doctorate of Rule, through Vita 9.
Vita 9. Things certainly have changed since 44.
The two military men quickly find common ground. The colonel has finally found an attentive listener he can bend the ear of. Meanwhile, Charlie returns, as always grumbling about the neighbors who blocked his access to the house. The knightly Shep decides to help him. After towing the car away with his bare hands, he draws the neighbor's rage, and they begin taunting the space warrior. Looking forward to a fight, Shep's in for a showdown.
You got any idea what we're gonna do to you if we find one itty-bitty scratch on him?
Let me guess. You're gonna pound my face, break every bone in my body. Then you're gonna drag me across the gravel road and feed my remains to a warthog. Is that about right?
What are you, nuts? This is the 90s. We're gonna sue you.
You'll be hearing from our attorney.
What kind of world is this?
Then, on the road, the Ferrari gang reappears driving recklessly. Shep saves Charlie's son from being run over at the last moment and goes after them. He flips their car, but Charlie arrives just in time to save the young fools from a nice beating. In gratitude for saving her son, Jenny bakes a cake for Shep. Charlie, in the meantime, takes a group photo as a keepsake. In the evening, the alien goes to check on his ship. Charlie keeps an eye on his tenant. He notices how the giant helps a lady to deal with a mugger. The Hulk then approaches a street mime performer pretending to touch an invisible wall and decides to help the poor guy.
It must be a K7 force field. Don't worry. I'll break you out of there. Glad I could help.
He eventually reaches his ship and checks how charge is going. As soon as Shep leaves the abandoned building, Charlie embarks on an inspection of the extraterrestrial vessel. Apparently at that moment, Doc Brown got the idea to create the DeLorean time machine. He examines the alien equipment and stumbles upon Shep's power armor. Meanwhile, the space warrior hears commotion in a local gaming club. Upon entering the establishment, he sees a schoolboy struggling with enemies in a video game. Not understanding that it's just a game, Shep starts giving the boy pointers, then takes the joystick and annihilates all the game's foes, causing the arcade machine to surrender by displaying a white flag. It finally dawns on him that it was just a game.
You must play this game a lot.
Game? What game?
And he moves on. On his way back home, Shep encounters the same street performer, who this time pretends to climb an invisible ladder.
Hey, let me give you a hand.
No, it's a will.
Glad I could help again.
That's it. I'm staying in night.
Meanwhile, Charlie finds an X-ray visor and notices two thugs trying to have their way with a lady against her will. Getting into the armor, he rushes to her rescue. The thugs shoot at him, but the bullets have no effect. Under the weight of the armor, Charlie falls and starts writhing on the ground like an overturned turtle. Then, he activates the amplifiers and incapacitates the villains. The girl embraces the man and offers to do anything he asks in gratitude, but the bewildered Charlie declines her offer. In the meantime, the groin shell indicates increased activity. Charlie didn't notice he dropped the activated alien weapon. The intergalactic bounty hunters have once again detected the signal emitted by the device. The next morning, Shep wakes up to a child crying outside his window. He approaches the little girl who is sobbing near a tree where her cat is stuck. As always, he helps those in need.
That's not my cat.
Oh.
Shep heads back to his ship and encounters his mime friend again.
Hey, buddy, let me give you a hand.
Hey, it's just a gag. You can have the rope. Leave me alone!
He gets into the ship and notices that someone has been rummaging through his things. Shep realizes that it was Charlie and goes to find him at work. Furious, Shep barges to the office, but the secretary isn't impressed by his tough demeanor and imposing size and doesn't let him into the room where a meeting is taking place.
My, what a big one.
Eventually, Charlie comes out of the director's office with a pile of new work assigned to him. Shep scolds the poor guy for losing his weapon, but the secretary sends the men away to resolve their issues elsewhere. The alien demands that Charlie take him to the place where he saved the girl, which Charlie obediently does. However, the weapon is no longer there, so Shep activates a tracking device, which leads them to a new location of the gun. This weapon has a restraining effect by safely freezing living beings for a few hours. Apparently, some homeless people found it and immediately went to rob a bank. The Hulk gets into a brawl with the crooks and during the fight accidentally freezes Charlie.
Charlie.
By this time, the weapon has been tracked by the intergalactic bounty hunters. They open fire on Shep, but he manages to lock them in a vault and make a run for it, carrying his frozen friend with him. Several hours later, Charlie regains consciousness. Shep explains that it's dangerous for him to stay on Earth because General Suitor's henchmen have tracked him, and they could wipe out the entire planet. He interrupts the ship's charging process and restores power, but the energy crystals burn out in the process. They have no other option but to face the battle on Earth, hoping to keep casualties to a minimum. Shep gives Charlie some equipment, but Charlie initially refuses to get involved in the fight. Shep tries to blame Charlie for this, but Wilcox finally summons the courage to stand up for himself in the argument and doesn't allow himself to be made the scapegoat again. While they talk, Shep mentions that the ship's energy crystals are made of simian crystal. Charlie immediately comes up with a plan. They attend a party at Charlie's company held to celebrate the signing of a lucrative contract with Japanese clients. There, the secretary shows a lively interest in Shep. He even gets a bit distracted, but Charlie quickly pulls him away from her clutches. They go up to the boss's office, but the crystals are missing. Using X-ray binoculars, they scan the building and locate the crystals on the top floor, where the boss is showing off his simian collection to the Japanese clients and stalling for time, as he waits for Charlie to finish the project and present it to him. In the meantime, the mercenaries' ship lands on the roof of the skyscraper, and the tough guys go on a hunt for their prey. Charlie approaches the boss and tells him he will bring the project to his office.
Did you make the alterations I specified?
Yes. I left them down in the car.
Car. Why the car?
I'll go and pick them up and bring them to your office.
Good, splendid. One more thing. Will I be astonished?
I think so.
The boss and the Japanese clients head downstairs, while Shep and Charlie retrieve the crystals. Apparently, the doe-eyed secretary had been keeping an eye on them, so she points her gun at them and orders to return the crystals. At that moment, bounty hunters burst into the room, and the three of them have to make a run for it. While Charlie and the secretary hide in a safe spot, Shep deals with the mercenaries mercenaries. A fight ensues, during which they trample everything in their path. Physical strength doesn't give Shep the advantage, so he has to rely on his wits. He pushes one hunter down to a lower floor and sends another one into an uncontrolled flight. The battle isn't over yet, and Shep's strength is waning. One hunter returns, but Shep manages to defeat him just before another one appears. After a long struggle, the cosmic villains are defeated. Charlie suggests that the injured Shep see a doctor, and in fact he has become attached to the big guy and offers him to stay for a while. However, Shep is determined to leave the planet as soon as possible to avoid putting Earthlings in danger, as other bounty hunters might show up. Ramsey asks Charlie to go home and check if he left any of his stuff behind. Charlie arrives at his home, but there he notices the partially open door. To his shock, he discovers that his entire family is already in the clutches of General Suter. Suter survived because the flagship had several escape pods, not just one as Shep had believed. The space tyrant uses Charlie as leverage, threatening harm to Charlie's family if Shep doesn't comply. Reluctantly, Charlie brings Suter to Shep. Being fired upon, Shep rushes into his ship and locks himself inside. Suter continues to threaten Shep, vowing to kill the entire family if Shep doesn't come out.
You actually care for these creatures.
You're wrong. They mean nothing to me.
Shep, who has genuinely grown fond of the people on Earth, activates the self-destruct system on his ship and emerges to plead for the family's release.
First you let them go, then you can do whatever you want with me.
Suter lets Charlie's family go and starts to intimidate Shep with his blaster. Just then, Charlie crashes in on Hoopty and knocks down the villain. Injured and unable to move, Shep watches as Charlie puts on the power armor glove and squeezes Suter's balls. This causes Suter to shed his human disguise, revealing his true reptilian form. Shep, summoning his last reserves of strength, defeats the villain by burning him with the use of a switchboard. He then carries Charlie to safety, moving far away from the ship. The ship's self-destruct system goes off, taking the evil tyrant with it. Everyone on the side of good is saved. The family is in awe of Charlie's heroic actions. The next morning, Charlie's boss is still stalling for time in front of the Japanese clients, waiting for his loyal servant. Charlie arrives.
We've been up all night, so Kaki's about to take his business elsewhere, and I'm running out of Japanese movies, so just explain your incompetence.
My incompetence?
Yes?
Is that what you've been telling them?
Hands him the project and resigns. Shep packs his things and prepares to leave the hospitable Earthlings. But before he departs, he takes a skateboard from a local kid to demonstrate his new skills. The kids are amazed at how quickly the big guy has mastered skateboarding. However, one of the skateboard wheels is broken. As a compensation, Shep gives the child his cosmic, gold-plated turbojet skateboard. He encounters a crying girl next to a tree once again.
Again?
My cat!
Are you sure?
But this time, instead of a cat, it's a child who set off for a flight. Shep safely catches the girl, and everything ends well. The Hulk appropriates the bounty hunter's starship. Charlie came to see off his friend, and Shep confesses that he's decided to start his own family. He's not leaving for space alone. Apparently, the big-eyed secretary goes with him. Charlie and Shep bid each other farewell, but express a desire to meet again someday. Shep Ramsey departs, leaving Charlie with his modified Glock as a parting gift, which Charlie uses to dismantle the annoying traffic light. I believe many of you recognized Hulk Hogan, Christopher Lloyd, and Shelley Duvall in the movie. Perhaps the wrestling fans even recognized the Undertaker in one of the bounty hunters. But I'll bet that hardly anybody noticed that the little girl was actually played by Elisabeth Moss. I hope you enjoyed this recap, and I really appreciate your likes. Join me on Telegram, where I share my production process and thoughts on creating my videos.